Life is messed up. All our lives, we chase comfort, we chase pleasure. But that comfort and pleasure that we chase is slowly killing us. Right. I discovered this when I was in my early 20s when I was still living under my parents' house, right? And I kind of realized that I really could not do anything. They cooked for me, right? They cleaned clothes for me, they washed for me. And then there was basically nothing. I basically felt useless. Literally, I felt useless. And that was the same period where I began to have like what? A heart condition. And the irony is I'm grateful for Jordan Peterson, who introduced me to Buddhist concept. So in the story of Buddha, Buddha was a prince that had to leave his palace for him to experience life. So I'm not going to lie, that thing hit me hard. And a few years later, I left my father's house to go on my own life adventure. And ever since, my life has been given this kind of like, yeah, it's been very difficult, it's been hard, but I think it's been worth it. That pressure that I put on myself was super worth it. And I'm not here to like praise myself, but one thing you should realize is the problem that people have is pressure, is the way they see pressure. They see pressure, you see pressure as stress, most likely, right? So if you see pressure as stress, what happens is you would want to avoid it completely. But there's a difference. Stress is an internal situation or problem, right? But guess what? Pressure is external. That means is you bring it upon yourself. So it's not, and the issue is not even about, okay, so now if you understand that stress and pressure are slightly two different things, well, what do they call it? Stress is internal and what? Mostly physiological or psychological, right? Either in the mind or in the body. But pressure is what? External. You get to realize that it's not really about the stress or the pressure that's the problem, but it's how we see it that is the problem. You see, I always say that one big problem that I realized we have in Gen Z is this topic of work-life balance. That is a very big problem, but we're not ready to have that conversation. The only reason you will claim work-life balance is because you don't like the work that you do. So it's not about balancing your life, but it's about what work are you really doing? Because if you are doing a meaningful work, right, you will find work-life balance, right? That's basically going to be your work and your life. And that's how the most fulfilled people are. They never search for work-life balance because they understand that, yes, work comes with pressure, but they enjoy it because they know why they do it. So if you look at it very well, look at anybody who you admire. They had to be some form of, right, pressure and stress. So it's like, there's even a research that was done, right, about stress, right? They put like a group of retired people, right? And they asked them about questions about stress. How do you see stress? The irony was time to like bring results together, right? 8 years later, you discovered that about 4 to 8 years, about 43% of them were dead. But what was shocking was that the ones who died were the ones who saw stress as a negative thing, as a bad thing. So what that means is the same stress that they all went through, right? The ones who saw it as negative were the ones that died earlier. And this is the same thing with man's search for meaning, where he said that the people who stayed alive, people who suffered to stay alive were people who believed that they had something waiting for them. They believed that they had a loved one waiting for them. So guess what? They stayed alive for that person. So what that means is, it's not really about the stress or the pressure, it's how we see it. It is basically how we see it. Now, I've ever wondered why a gym bro will go through all that pain to build muscles. Why do you think so? Why do you think he'll go through all that stress? Because he knows the benefits that comes with it. You see, almost every pressure you bring into your life has some form of benefit. But at the same time, I tell people that you should be very careful. That there are two kinds of pressures. There's one that is aspirational. That is, you're building a business. You're building a business, you're lifting weights, you're putting pressure on yourself. You're the one who is inflicting this pressure because you know what's at the other side of it. You know that it's part of the journey to get what you want in life. So what that means is you are happy to do it. But on the other hand, there is meaningless pressure. Like the worker in the low wage earning worker in a factory who hates his job, but yet he is forced to perform. He is forced to up his game. Such a person would hate the idea of stress, would hate the idea of work. This is why I tell people that if you're not intentional about your life, if you don't pick a meaningful work so that puts pressure on you, guess what? Society will put that pressure on you instead. Now think about it, right? I tell people that if you watch my videos, I talk about fighting, right? How your training is always more intense than the actual fight. There's a reason for that. Because For someone who can lift, let me just give you an analogy, right? For somebody who can lift 100 kg, the day you have to lift 50 kg, what happens? It becomes easier. It becomes less effortful. But if you could lift 100 kg and you're asked to lift 120, what happens? It becomes stressed. It's the same thing with life. So if you're not somebody who has put himself in pleasurable times over and over again, when you face the reality of things won't go well for you. For example, if you're somebody who has been comfortable socially, you do not want to go out, you do not want to meet people, the day you're probably looking for like a girlfriend, a girl to date, approaching women will be a problem for you. And this is where a lot of men have completely lost it. Approaching women will definitely be a problem for you. It won't go well for you. And I'm telling you that, brother to brother, right? You see, that life of comfort is a life that we all crave, but truly does not do us anything. Like I said, it's a short-term friend, but a long-term enemy. I'm very sure you've heard about this saying that easy today, difficult tomorrow. Difficult today, easy tomorrow. It's not a cliche saying, it's a fact. So what happens is, if you see something that is very stressful to you, right? I feel what you should do is this. Pause. Because no matter what you do, right? Pause and become aware of what is causing the stress. Now, I'm not having like a full system, but I'm like, okay, you know what? Look at the stress very well. Ask yourself, why is this stressing you? Because you see, whenever you know why something is stressing you, right, it's easy for you to detect what the problem is. And we can detect what the problem is. It's easy for you to do what? To fix that problem. But a lot of people just go through stress simply because what they don't realize is, whether you like it or not, you go through stress. Either you go through it now or you go through it in the real life. So I tell you this, it's like building muscles, like learning how to fight. Yeah. Do the most in your training. Do the most by yourself. So when you go out there, it becomes easy for you. When you go out there, when people see me in my vlogs talking to girls, right? New girls at the gym, it's that easy. Because what I have done it, I have made my mistakes. So guess what? When I get there, I don't feel the pressure to want to perform anymore. So whenever you look at, again, this even reminds me that whenever you see something on social media that somebody is doing effortlessly, one thing you should realize is they have and practice. But guess what? They may have deleted videos. You will not know this. They may have deleted pictures. You will not know this. The girls who you are seeing, even girls do this. The girls who you are seeing post pictures on social media, they probably took, for that picture they posted, they probably took 30 of them, for real. They took 30 of them just to post one. And yet you think you will not put pressure on yourself. There's literally nothing in this world that grows without a form of pressure. Not a single thing. Think about it. The scientific research to build trees in like this enclosed area, right? What happened was these trees were in a very enclosed space, but they noticed that these trees would always keep dying at a particular height. And that's because when trees are growing, they need wind to give them pressure. They need wind to stay firm. What that means is if there's no wind that's constantly putting pressure on them, they grow weak. And when they go to a certain height, they die. And that is what men are supposed to realize these days. So if you don't have a sense of purpose, guess what? You will never apply pressure in your life. But start from somewhere. Pick a goal. Literally, every single goal that's worthwhile brings a form of pressure into your life. So let's think about areas of life, right? Like how comfort is killing us there. Health-wise. When you go for food that is always what? Always dopamine-based, always addicting, over-consuming, right? Guess what happens? Matter of time, you begin to have what? Organ problems, brain problems. Okay, it's in the same health, if you don't work out, literally speaking, if you don't work out, if you're always sitting down, what happens? Relationships. If you're never there talking to women, right? And this is something that changed my mindset one day when I was watching a video from, I think it was Imad Ghazi, and Imad Ghazi said, you would not want to be a 30-year-old rich man who can't talk to women. At that moment, my brain froze. I was like, think about it. I would not want to be a 30-year-old with all that money, but I can't talk to women. So guess what? That was where the pressure started. You know what? I was like, fuck it. And at the same time, I was listening to a podcast by Mark Manson, and he said, I'm still on the basis of relationship. And Mark Manson said something along the lines of, he says that a guy who was very shy to talk to women, he set himself a goal of embarrassing himself, not really embarrassing, but failing talking to women, 100 women. Before he got to like 50 something, he now understood the gist about women. But guess what? Somebody will see him tomorrow who knew him as an introvert and will assume that, or who did not know him, but will assume that he was just gifted to talk to women. No. So what that means is, if you understand your problems, if you get that to solve your problems, your main problems in life, you need a form of pressure. Your mindset to completely change, right? If you don't have, and this is why I say that in this life, you should always have an intentional suffering, which is a goal, which is a vision, right? You tell yourself, you know what? It's like all of your desires, all of your goals, they're mostly, according to Naval Ravikant, these things are mostly contracts you sign with yourself, saying that I won't be happy until I achieve this thing. So I really hope I had more examples. Okay, so I did health, I did relationships, even money, right? If you don't put pressure on yourself to start a business, to bring in more income, guess what? It's a matter of time before the money you have goes away. There's a reason that people who inherit money don't really last long. There's a reason for that. It's obvious that people who inherit money, they don't have that pressure to sustain it. Some of them will go and give it to what investment bankers so they can spend little by little. But guess what? They aren't really living life. And those who are living life of free inheritance, guess what? They really don't get to grow. Now, I'm not here saying it from a part of pity. I'm saying it from my own story, right? And I understood that when I had that story of the Buddha in my head and said I had to leave my father's comfort home, right, where they cook for me, they go wash for me. I had to leave that place and basically put pressure on myself. So this is something that I don't just preach. I practice what I preach, right? Where was I? Health, wealth, right? So you put the pressure on yourself. Even the pressure of not spending money is also a pressure. Not spending money is also important. Not spending money on things that you don't want. I know from time to time we waste money here and there, but what's your attitude like? Look at a lot of kids who are born into wealthy homes, who are very comfortable. Because I was there. This is why I tell people that stop envying that rich kid. He also has insecurities. He has problems, right, that you don't have. You don't know what's going on in their life. So whenever I see the guys I used to grow up with, I completely get them. I'm not saying that I'm better. All I'm saying was that for me to achieve the person I want to be intentionally, I just have to suffer. Because like I said, I got into this idea of pressure by Jordan Peterson. And like I said, that guy really saved my life. And I don't know, for some weird reasons, people are just bashing him these days. They make you feel like Jordan Peterson is the worst nightmare. He's the worst. But instead, he has saved the lives of men. Right? He has made me realize that he himself, even with that same attitude and telling me that you should have a goal, because when he said you should have a goal, he gave me reasons to have a goal. That was the main thing that happened. And speaking of pressure, the story that made me stand up and say I'm leaving my father's house for good is one day he gave me an errand, right? I finished the errand. When I was done, he gave me another errand without understanding that I had client work to do. I was working, but I was charging little just to like buy my gadgets and be okay, right? And then when I told my mom was like, well, guess what? And this is where I'll always take my mom for this. I don't see them bitter. My mom said, boy, you live under his roof. At that moment, I realized that, okay, yeah, she's true. So I might as well leave his roof. So yes, I said that I left a very comfortable space where they cook, they clean for me to come. I remember when I moved into my apartment, for the first few months, I slept on the floor, right? But guess what? That pressure, that state I put myself into is what I am today. And I'm very happy that I was able to stretch myself. Stress and pressure on the muscles makes the muscles grow. At the same time, you should be very careful not to overstress or put too much pressure. Because a lot of people don't understand that. Yes, I preach pressure, but at some point, you should not overdo it. So yeah, what else? I said health, relationships, wealth, even happiness. The irony is, you even need pressure to be happy. Because if you look at people who are constantly on dopamine, hedonic hit, these are people who are what? Fuck. I just remember this story right now, man. If you've been watching my videos, you probably heard me talk about somebody who's close to me, who was always on one hedonic treadmill or the other. But guess what? At some point, he passed recently though, and he passed about a few weeks before his daughter was born, simply because he had no. So this is what I see in that guy's story, right? He was about to change his life. He was about to introduce pressure, but guess what? He was expecting a daughter, and then he knows that he had to provide for that daughter. That pressure led him to kind of, knowing that he was not yet prepared to be a father, put him in a state of what? Anxiety, depression. Because he knew that he could not really give his daughter the life that he really wants to give that girl. And before you know it, that chaos in the mind led him to take substances. Those substances were too much for him, and he didn't make it. He passed just a few weeks before his daughter was born. So you have two options, right? You have two options. Either be intentional about the pressure you want to put in your life, or you wait for life to throw pressures on you. Regardless, there's always pressure, there's always stress. My name is Tonareye, right? I don't know which day I am. All I know is that for 90 days, I'm creating paid worthy content to help young men understand that you can do more. To help men put pressure on themselves to become better version of themselves. Right? Think about it. Everything worthwhile in this life comes through some form of pressure. Your purpose will put pressure on you. So I wanted to share this video with somebody who you know will find it helpful, because it's referrals like this that basically help my channel to grow and makes me go out there and help more men. If you like what you're hearing in this video, I want you to, like I said, share with somebody. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon. And bye for now.